Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. This is the Age of Sigmar Stat Center, where I look at the event results over the weekend. If you're missing last week's show, then I was really sick and wasn't able to do it. I am going to try and catch up on that show at some point in the next week or so, but I'm also moving house. So lots of stuff is happening in my life, unfortunately, but I am excited to bring you the event results from this weekend with 370 players playing across 7 different countries. It's another busy week. We are getting into the territory where we're waiting for a battle scroll update, which is the first balance patch for Age of Sigmar. Do we know what that looks like? No, we're only 8 weeks into the edition, and therefore it's still pretty early in the scheme of things. Think how long it takes you to build and paint armies. That takes quite a long time. So we're still learning about which armies and units are good. We do have a very comprehensive both stat video and also stats on the honestwargamer.com. Go check out the stats video on YouTube and also the stats to start to get an idea of what the meta is looking like. We know Slaves to Darkness are the most popular army, and we know Nighthaunt are the most successful army at the moment. But there is more information to go and check out as well. Let's dive straight into our first event. But before I do that, I just want to thank everyone for liking, leaving a comment down below, and everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon for supporting the show, because obviously without you, wouldn't be able to do it. So therefore, they're the best, and everyone else sucks. Our first event takes us to the Nova Open. Now, Nova is one of the tentpole, the big events with LVO, Adepticon that happen obviously in the US. Leading up to, I think, probably going to be the biggest, or at least one of the biggest tentpole events that's going to be happening in October every year now in the North American Masters, which is happening the first weekend of October. That's where teams of 8 are going to come together and battle it out to become the best team in North America, which is really fun. You are going to see me there as well. It's organized by the Wicked Dicey people, and you'll see me there doing all of the streaming and try to cover the event as well as possible, as one man can. Which is going to be very fun. So we'll be covering that then. But this event was pretty big. Not as big as LVO, but 166 players attending. Nova is kind of like an okay event. They do the same thing that other events do. They do the pod system. Now, what does that mean? If you're not from America, and specifically these larger events, what they have is they have a bunch of people playing up until, I think it's around 4 or 5. I don't know. If I'm honest with everyone, don't care. But what happens is eventually, however well you've done, you get broken out into a pod, or maybe it's not a pod system anymore, whatever. Eventually, there's a top 8. Eventually, whatever system it is, I can't remember. Maybe they cut their heads off chickens and run around. I'm not sure. Eventually, they end up with 8 players playing in single elimination brackets to become the champs. And that's why when you start looking at the placings for this, the numbers become really crazy. And you're like, what is happening? Who's got this? What's happening here? And so easy peasy. The person who won the most is at the top. That makes it simple. So Caleb was at the top and did it with Disciples of Tzeentch. Now, Disciples of Tzeentch are absolutely a kind of like sleeper hit in Age of Sigmar 4. I think a lot of people in Age of Sigmar 4 were unsure that these were going to do really well, and they have been like a little bit of a sleeper hit. Now, if you are new to Age of Sigmar, or you haven't been keeping track with event results, Caleb is a long-time Tzeentch player. He's won multiple GTs, multiple massive events. Him and his brother travel all around the country playing all the time, and Caleb has won loads of events himself. So this could be an army issue. It could also be, and it definitely is also a Caleb issue. He's an excellent player who plays excellent Warhammer on the tabletop a lot of the time. So shout out to Caleb. And we're going to be able to hear from him in just a moment. So he's playing with the 2 Skyfires list, he says. Obviously, he took the Morbid Conjuration Manifestation, and he's got the Weird Flame Host. But he's got Kairos, 6 Skyfires in the General's Regiment. Now, that is, I think, an atypical regiment formation you're going to see in the future. What do I mean by that? Well, you have a reinforced unit of 6 there, but it's a reinforced shooting unit in the General's Regiment. Right now, they allow the General's Regiment to get the Honor Guard upgrade that you get in this year's General's Handbook, and that allows you to get +1 to hit and +1 to wound against the units in the enemy General's Regiment, including the General themselves. Seeing as the General almost always has to be some sort of like key piece in an enemy army, Fate Weaver, for example, with his battle tactics, Slan for returning models, Great and Clean One for returning models from the dead. You know, you have these centerpiece models which you cannot elect for them to be or not be your general because of the War Master keyword. Therefore, you get this like effective ability to create an assassination squad in your general's regiment. And so the Skyfires are obviously an excellent unit for doing that. So you get +1 to hit and +1 to wound against both the enemy general and units in the enemy general's regiment. And apart from that, there's no other units in the regiment, therefore making it so the opposing army's unit that does that isn't going to have as many units to hit at. Cool. Kairos, obviously, has got the ability to choose battle tactics. Don't forget, you don't win the game by killing units. You win the game by scoring points, and Kairos helps you score points. Then there's a Lord of Change with the Royal Sorcery, and then a unit of blue horrors, a unit of pink horrors that's been reinforced as well, and then another unit of Skyfires. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but I did a little bit of a show. I did a Zinch review. You go check it out. And the amount of horrors that can like return is just unbelievable. And they're great for holding objectives. And guess what you want to do in this game? You want to hold objectives. So excellent there. But you don't have to take it all from me. Instead, let's listen to Caleb tell us what his games were like at the event.
Yeah, so if we talk about, what I'm worried about in terms of playing Zinch and in this tournament was, the boogeyman, right? The night haunt. The coming here, I didn't realize how crazy it was. The kangaroos, the LRL. Right, and then seeing Tom and shooting 90 shots a turn and no ward saves, I'm like, all right, Caleb, this tournament, we're playing the Matrix game. We're Neo. We're dodging everyone. I'd have to play a single Night Hunt player who start there, right, or LRL, and I was able to navigate, right. And so if we talk about Zinch right now in its current state, it's awesome, right. It's different than what it was, but it has a mix between recursion, where we lost the summoning, right, which is nice because it's not something we have to roll a 4+ like some other armies. It's automatic. It still has the shooting of like the Skyfires, the Flamers. It has some flavor now where some of the lore around the Lord of Change, where it makes everything kind of illusionist, where you have now the -1 to hit when you're fully within 12 is awesome. Kind of able to have a rotating castle, and so it's a lot of fun. The stand and shoot, the covering fire, whatever they call it now, is so crazy strong, especially with Skyfires, suffering no negatives to hit, no negatives to wound, cleaning up, and then priority targets, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. It's awesome, right? And now you have, big defense in the front with your horrors that can split again or blow up. It's crazy. Good job. Right? We talk about our last game on game 5, where I'm playing OBR who has a 2-up armor, save everything, and the best I have is Ren 1. And how am I going to do this? It's all about just trying to create bubbles and teleport units on specific key points, target priority everything at one unit until it's all finished, and then keep moving, right? And so I was able to pull it off.
Looking at the rest of the big winner boys in the top 8, we've got Tom Guan, one of the most successful Age of Sigmar players in the world, with Lumineth Realm Lords. He's got the Morbi Kunj as his manifestation lore and the Lore of Heesh. His general's regiment is Severith, Hurricane Spirit of the Wind, and those wind charges. Same deal as with the Skyfires. Then the Hurricane Wind Mage is in the lead in the next regiment with a Hurricane Spirit of the Wind and 2 more units of Hurricane Wind Chargers. Obviously, we just heard from Caleb that you're getting like 70 shots coming at you across the board. They're incredibly mobile with the ability to move after they've shot, which is very good. Also, those Wind Mages are excellent for doing 2 different things. Not the Wind Mages, sorry, the Spirits of the Wind. Doing 2 different things. 1, scoring battle tactics. Number 2, grabbing objectives. Those are the only 2 things you actually ever need to do in Age of Sigmar to win a game, and they do that. So high mobility and also the ability to do a lot of focused damage thanks to all of the shooting, bringing that all to bear on a single place on the board. Very, very effective. Played by one of the most successful players in the world. Unsurprising to see it do so well. Gavin Grieger, also Tom Guan's best friend. One of my friends, I hope. I hope Gavin's my friend. I love Gavin. He's great. Running Gloomspike Gits. Now, Gavin has already won an event with this Gloomspike Gits already. His list is called Washed Up at AOS. His battle formation is a Squigglehanch. Now, it's going to probably... Oh, no, actually, let's look at it. It's got the Morbi Conjuration as the manifestation lore. His general's regiment is Squigbosh and Nash the Squig. He's got the Gobblepalooza, and he's got two reinforced units of Squigherd, and then another little Squigherd. Then his other regiment is a Dankhold Truckboss and 18 Rock Guts. Having faced 18 Rock Guts and also used 18 Rock Guts in an event, I gotta say that I reckon 18 Rock Guts is insanely good. But he did also lose a couple of games, so it's worth noting. Very, very good, very cheap incredibly efficient. Now, the big thing here is instead of going for Trog Herd, or sorry, not Trog Herd, but just the Trog Herd, then the battle formation was Squigalanche. So this is obviously giving all those bonuses to the Squig Herd. I think what Gavin is basically showing you here is that the 18 Rock Guts is enough, and he doesn't need the additional healing, and you get much more bonus from the battle formation by having those, I think it's an extra attack on the Squig Herd, which is very, very effective. While you're dealing with it, while you're trying to deal with the Rock Guts, the Squig Herd are left alone to do all the damage that they need. And obviously, Gavin's already won an event with this, so I'm not surprised to see that happen. Then we got Michael Rausch, Swaggy Shadow Sword with his OCR Bone Reapers. He was running the Mortisig Council for the pluses to cast, and he wasn't running the Morbiconge, and instead his manifestation law was the Horrors of the Necropolis. He was running Catacross, a reinforcing Mortis Guard, no, just a normal Mortis Guard unit, a Liege Cavalos, and then Vort Martian, which is pretty wild, a reinforced unit of Death Riders, and then a reinforced unit of Archai. Now, I know you're asking yourself, wow, that's a cool list. How do I hear about this list being played? Well, let's go listen to old Swaggy Shadow Sword right now.
Yeah, I was playing Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I brought Catacross, 4 more gas and Death Riders with some other smaller support units and heroes. The main premise really was to just take them and save stack them, since not a lot of things can save stack with a 3-up armor. So things like Morghast Archai, Catacross, and Mortis Guard. Taking them all from their 3-up saves down to 2s, with all that defense bringing them down to 1s. So I'm saving it against 2s against most of the army. Makes the army really difficult to kill, and with everything moving 12 inches, retreating and charging, I can just kind of pick my fight selectively and kill them, and with Catacross adding to my objective control scores, I actually outscore people surprisingly well. So when you're saving on 2s, with high armor, with decent wards, you're able to win a lot of games.
Next up, talking about another winner, Mike Maccabee from the Tough Crowd. Love Mike Maccabee. Was running Nighthaunt. He's already won a couple of events. Didn't win this event, but has already won a couple of events with his list as well. And, you know, just to point out, a Nighthaunt with 2 losses there, and then Madigan, absolutely fantastic, an amazing mind for rules and understanding how the game works, is one of the refs at the Age of Sigmar World Team Championships. Just a super great person, also with Nighthaunt, but also losing 3 games, and they are different as well. So for Mike's list, it was Nightshine on Ethereal Steeds, Dreadblade Harrows ×2, 2 reinforced Hexwraith units, Reikenor the Grimhaler, unit of Blade Geist Revenants, and another reinforced unit of Hexwraiths for 30 Hexwraiths. But important to note, he lost 2 games. And I'm not pointing that out to bully Mike. I'm pointing that out to say Nighthaunt lost games. Just be conscious of that. Then Madigan was running in the Deathstalkers battle formation, Lady Alinda, 2 reinforced units of Dreadscythe Harridans, a reinforced unit of Hexwraiths, and a small unit of Hexwraiths. Then Reikenor the Grimhaler, a Lord Executioner, Dreadblade Harrows, and unit of Chain Ghasts. So, very different lists to each other. They both did well, but they also both lost. That's important to note. Matthew Davis, Eric Erickson, or Derek Erickson is also known, or Math Mallow from the Lumineth Realm Lords and Team Lit. He was running LRL, but a different list to some of the lists we've seen previously, where he was running the Venari Battle Host, and he was running Tech Lists. I've had this question asked a lot of times in the chat, or at least once. Why did Tech Lists lose? Why doesn't Techlist just get killed? And it's because you've got to deal with everything else that's in the LRL list. And Techlist is incredible for being able to pop out those Morbid Conjuration spells. So unlike other armies, which are casting and maybe getting them off sometimes, basically you can put down 4 units immediately from the LRL army with Techlist, as well as all of the utility that Techlist brings. And he's not that expensive at 590, and is very good. Then you're dealing with 20 Sentinels shooting you, 10 Dawn Riders charging at you. Then you're dealing with the Wind Mage and 2 Wind Spirits, and those Wind Spirits are just grabbing objectives and then grabbing parts of the board, especially when the objectives are smaller and there aren't as many units in the game. The unit count is lower. That means it's much easier for things like the Wind Spirits to grab objectives, especially with their control value of 5. So that's very, very effective. And then Stian Egbertson in the top 8 was running Slaves to Darkness, the most popular army at the moment in the Godswrath Warband. He was running the Manifestation Law Forbidden Power. He had Bellicor, a unit of Chaos Furies, a unit of Chaos Knights, a reinforced unit of Varangard of Mark of Khorne, and a reinforced unit of Varangard with the Mark of Khorne. So charge, fight twice, slap twice, have a great time. Bellicor, best war scroll in the game. Absolutely brilliant. So good. If you charge at it, they're going to strike first on a 4-up a lot of the time. That's pretty devastating as well. So even in that situation, then Furies for doing, even in that situation, you're in a tough spot, then Furies for doing battle tactics. Absolutely excellent. A special shout out to my friend Noah in 9th place, who also won Best Sports. Jacob Brandon in 10th place, not in that top 8 bracket, but running Cruel Boys and only dropping a game. The wonderful Yuri Shishvana, definitely got that wrong, with Nighthorn also only dropping a game as well. So there's still lots of armies in this top section. If you look, we got another double Lumineth Realm Lords in here. We got a Sons of Behemoth doing really well. Fabian Barboos up there with Soulblight Gravelords. Dylan with Cities of Sigmar right at the top. And then we got Flesh Eater Courts and then Iron Jaws, played by by Nicholas Walters, who's Caleb's brother, who won the event, only dropping 2 games. I think Iron Jaws players will be pretty happy about that. He was running a 4-drop list in the Iron Jaws Brawl. He had Godrak, a reinforced unit of Brutes, a War Chanter, a reinforced unit of Gore Grunters, and then a War Chanter and a unit of Gore Grunters. And then lastly, a Weird Knob Shaman and a unit of Gore Grunters. And you're going to ask yourself, aren't these the most trash unit in the book? I'll argue yes. But again, this is the player. Nicholas Walters is pretty much exclusively, or Scooter as he's known, is almost exclusively played Iron Jaws all of the time. And so he understands them back to front. And if you do really want to do really well with an army, even though he didn't win the event, he had an amazing win record for this army. If you want to do really well with an army, you stick with an army and you play that army. Anyway, a special shout out to all the TOs at the Nova Open. I hope you had a great time. I hope my criticisms of like the top 8 pod system thing, it's not a personal thing. It's just a lot for me to take in. Feels like a lot of games, feels like a lot of palaver, but I hope you all had a wonderful time. I know for a fact people love going to Nova. They love going to Adepticon. They love going to LVO. So people do like that system of game. Hope you all enjoy themselves. And let's go look at the next event. Our next event is Blackout number 8. This is a yearly event that happens in the UK and happens in Wales at the Firestorm Gaming Centre. It's organised by Chris Tomlin. Shout out to Chris. Chris had a lot on at the moment, and so being able to put an event on was a difficult time, he was saying. I'm sure everyone who attended the event was very appreciative of him making the time and doing the event. So 8-6 players battling it out. We have 3 5-0s from this event because it was such a massive event. And then we have a bunch of 4-1s. So those 5-0s, all the winners, congratulations. First one we're going to look at is Matt Goldsborough. So he was running Morbi Conjuration in a Caradron Overlords army. A lot of players, very unsure about Caradron Overlords as an army, but it does have a unique little twist. He's running the Aether Runners battle formation, and he's got the Engine Master with Engine Harness, an Ironclad, a unit of Thunderers reinforced, then a unit of Thunderers reinforced, and then a unit of Thunderers, and then he's got one last Navigator running Regiment 2 and the Gunstruck Gun Hauler. But as I understand it, and I talked about this a lot the past couple of weeks, he was also running the regiment, the Black Talons. This does a couple of things. Number one, it gives him access to Lorai, which is a wizard that allows him to cast the Morbid Conjuration spells. But in addition, Neve, as I understand it, in his final game to go 5-0, he's playing against Zinch and Stephen Follows, and was able to just put Neve immediately into Kairos, make her fight twice, survive the combat attacks back, and immediately one-shot Kairos. So having run Neve an event last week myself, going 4-1 in a Sylvaneth army, she definitely is like a little bit of a sleeper pick. If you want to pick up that box and run it in an order army, it's very fun. You get an additional wizard, you get a fun little combat unit, and you get Neve running around. 320 is pretty expensive, but very fun. With the addition to that, KO just shooting loads and loads of shots. Again, theme of the week, shooting in your opponent's turn, shooting in your turn, absolutely just bringing all of those points to bear on a single objective. Just absolutely excellent. The wonderful Dan Arnold with his Lumineth Realm Lords. Now, this list is going to be identical to the list we saw play at Nova, being run by Math Mallow. And the reason that the list is identical is because they're both on the Welsh national team, as is Matt Goldsborough. I should have said that as well. So that's 2 5-0s for the Welsh national team at this event. Leading up to 6 Nations, which is being held in Sweden this year, which is where England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Wales, and Sweden all battle against each other to become the 6 Nations champs. The Welsh team got to be pretty happy getting in a lot of good results. Dan was running the same list that we saw Math Mallow running, which is Teclis in a Venari battle host for Lumineth Realm Lords, a unit of Reinforced Sentinels, a reinforced unit of Dawn Riders, 1 Wind Mage, and 2 Wind Spirits. So everything I said to the other list, happens here as well. Now, representing the English national squad, Simon Weekly with the Disciples of Zinch was running Zangor Coven and the Forbidden Power Manifestation Law. And then Kairos Fate Weaver, a reinforced unit of Skyfires, a reinforced unit of Skyfires, then a Lord of Change, and then 3 individual 3s of Skyfires. So pretty much what I was saying before, but no board control on those objectives with any pink horrors, and instead leaning into all of the shooting that comes out of the Skyfires to drop as many shots into units as possible from Simon. Now let's look at the 4-1s, but before we do that, let's shout out Matt Priest. It was his first ever event, and he won Best Sports at the event. Love that energy. Well done to him. You should be super proud of that. And also shout out to Stephen Phillips, who intentionally took 3 auxiliaries in his list to make it a 7-drop list, which is pretty fun. All right, so in our 4-1 category, our top 4-1 is Orpheus Chloros. Now, Orpheus is 13 or 14. And this is not his first 4-1 at an event. So absolutely excellent to see him playing at such a massive event and doing so well. So congratulations, as always, to Orpheus. Keep going. You're doing great. So he was running Slaves to Darkness with Be'lakor. He had a Godswrath Warband and the Morbid Conjuration. And then he had Be'lakor, 10 Chosen, a unit of Nurgle Warriors, not reinforced, then a Chaos Sorcerer Lord, and then a unit of Nurgle Knights, a unit of Chaos Warriors, and then a unit of Varangard in his list as well. So a little bit more MSUE and not committing as heavily as some people do to all the Varangard, but committing pretty heavily that big unit of Chosen, which is very effective. Then Tom Marshall was running Daughters of Cain. He was running the Forbidden Power Manifestation Law. He had Marathi Cain, 2 units of Heart Renders, and then the next regiment had the Meliusai, a reinforced unit of Blood Sisters, times 3. So just as much fighting as you can get. Don't forget it does all that mortal wound damage as well. Mortal damage, sorry, as well, which is very effective. Remain was running Lumineth Realm Lords with a ton of Wardens, Venari Battle Host, as Caligrave, a reinforced unit of Wardens, 2 units of 10 Wardens, and a Lord Regent, a reinforced unit of Dawn Riders times 2, and then another unit of Dawn Riders. So some units that are great for holding objectives, and some units that are great for going and grabbing objectives. Then Andy Hughes running OCR Bone Reapers in the Kavalos Lance, had Nagash, a reinforced unit, a unit of Immortus Guard, 2 units of Death Riders, and that big unit of Harbingers. The reason the Harbingers are so good, 540 points you see in them played, is once a unit is wiped out, Nagash can bring the entire 540 point unit back from the dead. Therefore, basically playing with a 2.5k army, which is pretty effective. Sure, it's pretty limited on points, but it means you first turn, on units on the board, but it just means you can just yeet a unit up the board. It can pin units in. Eventually, when it gets killed, just bring it back and do that process again. And if they hit something, that thing normally dies. Then you got Phil Marshall, great guy, with his Cruel Boys. He's running the Cruel Boys Claw. He's got a Snatcher Boss on Sundraker Beast, a Beast Skewer Killbow, and then a unit of Monster Killers times 3. Then he has a Swamp Caller Shaman of Potgrot, a reinforced unit, 3 reinforced unit of Gut Rippers as well. So probably very conscious that he doesn't need to pick up any Monster Killers, as they'll probably get an FAQ or a points adjustment in the future. So probably trying to see what the army looks like post that FAQ with a ton of Gut Rippers. And Gut Rippers do some phenomenal damage. They're very, very solid. And the Killbow for keeping units honest and making them charge at you. And then Aaron Boyhan, with his Cruel Boys as well, was running Morbid Conjuration in the middle finger battle formation. And they had a Swamp Caller Shaman Potgrot, Manskewer Bolt Boys reinforced, and then his next regiment. So again, following that theme of the shooting unit in the General's regiment with +1 to hit, +1 to wound. Then his next regiment was a Killer Boss and Corpse Ripper Vulture, and then 2 Killbows, a unit of Monster Killers, and then the next regiment was a Snatcher Boss on Sundraker Beast and a reinforced unit of Gut Rippers. So again, great combat from them. Snatcher Boss on Sundraker Beast, also excellent combat as well. The Killbows doing the same thing in Phil's list as well. So lovely to see that. And then we have Colin Cochrane, all the way over from Northern Ireland, a great human being. So he was running Stormcast Eternals and the Sentinels of the Black Citadel. He was running the Manifestation or the Cronspine Incarnate, and he had a Knight Zephyros in the General's Regiment, and then, would you believe it, a reinforced unit of Vanguard Raptors with long strike crossbows for the shoot twice mechanic. These also get a teleport as well, which is good. Knight Incarnum, a reinforced unit of Liberators, a reinforced unit of Vanquishers. Next regiment, a Lord Relictor, 2 units of prosecutors, and a unit of reclusians. And then finally, that Regiment of Renown, the Saviors of Cinderfall, Callus and Toll, which you expect to see in most order lists. They're just normally, points-wise, more efficient than any other unit you can bring in your army. So very effective. This is a very interesting list. Colin has always pushed the boat. He used to play like dwarf cities, which was interesting. Then he ran loads of chariots in Stormcast as well. So he's always really thinking through different armies. I am amazed to see the Reclusians on the board. Genuinely, I don't really think that they're that good. So not only good to see them on the board, but excellent to see them performing so well. But maybe that's just a Colin situation. Then Glenn Short with the Gloomspike Gits was running the Trog Herd and the Manifestation Law, the Dank Manifestations. The reason you normally see that so much is because when you have the Manifestation, the Moon, that gives you +1, lets your units be under the light of the moon, even if they're not near the shrine or if the moon isn't in your table quarter. That means that your Rock Guts are going to be able to get all those pluses to save, which is just so effective. So then Trug is in the list, a unit of Boingrot Bounders, the Gobblepalooza, and some Ripper Snarlfangs. All those units are probably there. Well, the Boingrots and the Snarlfangs are for doing objectives, and the Gobblepalooza is just for shutting down any creating a -1 to hit bubble, shutting down attacks that go into Trug, all those sorts of things, making Trug very unkillable. Then a Dank Old Trog Boss, and then 18 Rock Guts. Very solid. Absolutely terrifying. Damien Rees, great human being, with his Soulblight Gravelords running Morbi Conjuration. His subfaction, or his battle formation, sorry, was Death March. He had Manfred von Carstein, a reinforced unit of Black Knights, another reinforced unit of Black Knights, then a Necromancer, 2 units of Fellbats, a reinforced unit of Graveguard. I'm really happy. He was at an event at the TSN Arena a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, please just take Fellbats. I would really like to. He messaged me this morning, yesterday, or he tweeted me, I can't remember which one, just being like, yeah, Soulblight Gravelord's pretty good. I'm like, they are pretty good. Graveguard, absolutely solid for doing loads of combat. Fellbat's really good for grabbing objectives, even though they're beasts, because you can't, they're so fast and mobile, very much like Heart Renders and a bunch of other units, but you have to commit some points to make sure that they can't just grab an objective off you. They can go and do loads of battle tactics, which is very good. And then when you kill them, you kill all 3, which normally, if you look at some of those death lists where it's like Nagash and 5 and 4 Harbingers, you're like, do I really want to commit 500 to 900 points to kill 3 bats? And then those 3 bats turn back into 2 bats. So it's really efficient by being very cheap, which is very fun. And then Torgillis for the extra healing in the army, which is probably always going to have to be taken. And then the Deadwalker zombies. Then Carl Brewster with Skaven. Lovely to see Skaven up there using the Claw Horde battle formation. His general's regiment was a Greyseer, a Doomflayer, and a reinforced unit of Jezzails. Again, the theme. And then the Greyseer and Screaming Bell in the next regiment, a reinforced unit of Clan Rats, a unit of Clan Rats. The Clan Rats are actually very good. Actually very good. And also Skaven are a great anti-meta pick in many ways because they've got that ability. If you have the Warpseer, you don't have this. But they have the ability, I think, in most cases to always threaten to shut down being able to score the battle tactic where you have 2 units in the middle at the start of the game. Most people use that as their first battle tactic, and seeing he's only 3 drops, he's probably going to get at least a dice roll off to see if he gets the first turn anyway. Shutting down battle tactics is going to be a video I make in the future just about how effective that strategy is, but we'll make that a video in the future. Anyway, but Skaven are really good at it is the point. And then his next regiment was the Vermlord Deceiver, and then a unit of Clan Rats. Carl's also a great human being. So he follows with his Disciples of Tzeentch, running the Weird Flame Host. He had the Borby Conjuration, and then Fate Weaver, Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch, which is something you have to pay for so you can use your spell lore, and then a reinforced unit of Flamers, and then the Changeling, 2 units of Blue Horrors, and then a unit of Pink Horrors, and then finally that Lord of Change, and then 3 units of Flamers of Tzeentch. Now, he lost his final game to that KO matchup where Neve Blacktalon was able to take out Kairos, but again, this is different to the list that we saw do really well at Nova, but still a very solid list. It's got to be the sleeper book. It has to be the sleeper book at this point. I'm calling it now. Tzeentch right up there in the A tier. And then our final list, Casper with his Hedonites of Sinesh. Great to see. In the Seeker Cavalcade, we're going to see more Sinesh in the future when we get our Norwegian event, I think. So he's running Shalaxi Hellbane with the Manifestations of Depravity as well. Reinforced unit of Blissbarb Archers. Just shouting out my friend Pershaw about that. And then the Mask of Sinesh. Then the Keeper of Secrets, 2 units of Seekers and a unit of Slickblade Seekers as well. So being able to shoot twice with the Bliss Barbs, great. Shalaxi, great for fighting. Keeper of Secrets, really good in combat with Strongest Alone and the Pendant of Sinesh. Seekers really fast for doing their tactics, and Slickblade Seekers, very, very effective for doing combat. So you've got a lot of combat options here in this game, which is in that list, which is very good, and all backed up by those Bliss Barbs. Looks like it was a lovely event. Firestorm is an amazing venue. There's loads of different events that happen at Firestorm across the year. You've got things like Blackout. You have things like Moe's event. I don't know if it's still called Clash. There's a bunch of different events that happen. You have the Welsh Open that happen at Firestorm Games. It's a lovely venue to play Age of Sigmar. If you get the chance, go and check it out. Our next event takes us over to Sweden for the Lord of the Mounds 8. This is run by the absolutely fantastic Eric. And it took place in the beautiful Uppsala in Sweden. You should go over, if you would like to go to an event anywhere in the world, you think, do you know what, I really want to play internationally somewhere. I couldn't suggest Sweden or Norway. Apologies to both countries now, because you both hate me for saying both of you, because they're both just beautiful countries and they've got wicked people. So try and get to them if you can. Anyway, in the 5-0 category, we've only got one army, but also one player. One of the most successful players in the whole world, Ronja Anderson with Flesh Eater Court. So as you can see, I'm using the website malarkey.com, which is the website I use to run events as well. You can also use it to track your own games, even if you're playing at the club. It's got an inbuilt scorecard, and I'm just a massive stan for this website. It just works really well. You can see Ronja has played 14 games and has won all 14 games so far, which is pretty rough. 8 with Flesh Eater Courts and 6 with Nighthorn. Anyway, in her list, she was running the Morbid Conjuration in Flesh Eater Courts with the battle formation being the Lords of the Manor. She's running Ustran, which almost feels like an auto-include because of just everything Ustran brings to the party. And then a unit of Crypt Guard, a Marascore Herald, and 2 units of Morbid Knights. And then an Abhorrent Arc Regent, Crypt Haunted Courtier, and then a reinforced unit of Crypt Horrors and a reinforced unit of Crypt Horrors. I'm unsurprised to see the Crypt Horrors reinforced in this particular list, but it's also good to see what you're seeing, I think, from a few other lists where you're seeing those small little units like Morbeg Knights. They're solid enough that they can fight off little units for doing battle tactics on board edges. They're fast, which is also really good as well. And that just leaves kind of the meat of the army, very much like a Gitz army, where the Rock Guts are the meat middle, and then you've got like the Boingrots or the Squig Herd or wherever it might be on the board edges doing those tactics. You're seeing Morbeg Knights do something very similar as well, which I think is good. So congratulations to Ronja, but again, an excellent list. Then you've got Jesper Melenda, another great player. So this is a 4-1 category. Now, Ronja and Jesper, both part of the Swedish national team. I should just point that out. Running OCR Bone Reapers. And then he was running the Mortek Ballistari. Don't forget, a couple of weeks ago, Jesper was able to win an event with the Mortek Ballistari list, which is very cool. And he was running, and also an event I ran last week, they also did really well as well. So he was running the Mortek Ballistari battle formation and the Horrors of Necropolis manifestation lore with Catacross, a reinforced unit of 4 Archai, 2 of the Mortek Crawlers, the Ossifector, the Mortek Guard, and the Terratic Cohort. So he only lost one game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't to Ronja. So again, that feels like a very solid list, played by a really great player as well. So something to be really conscious of. And then we have Robert FB with Stormcast Eternals. Again, Stormcast Eternals doing really well. So he was running Krondis in the Lightning Echelon, and then a unit of 6 Vanguard Raptors, 4 Dracothian Guard, and then 3 Praetors. Then a Lord Relictor with 6 Gryphounds, 3 Prosecutors, and 5 Liberators in the list. So long strikes, shooting like shooting do. Krondis, both a fighting monster and a good caster for casting the Morbid Conjuration. And then the Dracothian Guard Concussors, also absolutely solid in both shooting and fighting for a second unit as well, to go and do all of the work. So brilliant stuff. Then Albie, love Albie, he's a great human being. Again, part of the Swedish national team. Played loads on Malarkey, got an 84% win rate, but only exclusively been playing with Fire Slayers. So you can see that you can track that he's just been grinding out all these Fire Slayer games. That's why Malarkey is so good. And then he's using the Warrior Kimban sub-faction. And then he's got the Uruk Rune Smiter with 10 Hearthguard, 10 Volkite Berserkers, and 9 Flame Seekers. And then he's got a Rune Master, 10 Hearthguard Berserkers with pole axes reinforced, another 10 with pole axes reinforced, and then 20 Volkite Berserkers. And he's brought in the the Regiment of Renown, the Elfwin's Thorns, into the list as well. So that's giving him a little bit of early movement and also the ability to move onto board edges as well. And while the center block of his army is doing all of that forward pushing and hitting all of those big enemy units, Elfwin's Thorns are going to be jumping around and scoring him lots of points, which is very excellent, as well as reducing charge range for enemy units, which is also very good because you want to charge them, you don't want them to charge you. So great work to see there from Albie, absolutely brilliant. And I think that's everything from, let me just double check. That's everything from this event. Yeah, that's our last 4-1. So congratulations to everyone at this event. Eric for running the event, everyone in Sweden. Hope you have a great time. Our next event takes us over to Spain, where we have 42 players battling it out at the La Voz de Sigmar Open. I am going to say some names now, and I don't mean people to be upset with me. So I'm going to say them, and here we are. So in first place, we had Emilio Martin Lindberg of the Valencia Total with his Nighthaunt list, and he was running the Morbid Conjuration, Lady Olinda, Bladegeist Revenants, 2 Reinforced Unit Hex Wraiths, 2 Reinforced Unit of Bladegeist Revenants, 1 unit, and then another unreinforced, a Lord Executioner, and Alrak the Drowner. Unrendable saves, run and charge, fight, 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 fight. So that is Emilio. And then in our 4-1 category, we had Fran Marcos with Nighthaunt and Jota DJ with Nighthaunt. So we're just going to skip them. However, Martin Rodriguez in the 4-1 category was running Soulblight Gravelords, which is cool to see. And he was running in the Death March battle formation, the Crudspine Incarnate as a manifestation law, and then Manfred and a reinforced unit of Black Knights, and then a Necromancer and 2 reinforced unit of Black Knights, and then the auto-pick Torgillis the Chamberlain. The reason he's auto-pick because he doubles up on the battle traits that you get for your army in doing all the additional healing, and then a unit of Graveguard, which slap mega hard. Then we have Miguel Dusold with Slaves to Darkness, and he was running. Oh, have I got that right? I've missed it. It says Slaves to Darkness, but now it's popped up with LRL. 1 second. Oh, what is Miguel's list? So he was running Godsroth Warband, which is the auto pick for Slaves to Darkness. Running Crunchman Incarnate as a manifestation. Then he had Be'lakor, a unit of Chaos Furies, a reinforced unit of Chaos Knights. An unreinforced unit of Chaos Knights, reinforced unit of Varangard, and reinforced unit of Varangard with the Mark of Khorne. Everything I've said about this list already. If you charge at them, Be'lakor is going to make you potentially, they're going to strike before you. You can pile and attack twice with Khorne. If the Varangard do get the charge off, they're going to get extra damage, pile in, well, not extra damage, but or extra damage definitely. But then they're going to pile and attack twice and do all that damage that way. Be'lakor is going to shut down your key piece. Absolutely brilliant. And then if they get a Crunchspine Incarnate on the board, just absolutely outrageous stuff. Then you've got Ikar Rubio with his Lumineth Realm Lords, and he was running the Huracan Temple battle formation with Morbid Conjuration. Then Teklis again in the game. Then Sentinels, 10 Dawn Riders, Severith, and then 2 Wind Chargers. This, by the way, is like the 4th 4-1 we've seen just this weekend for that single specific list. So absolutely Devo, which is an English word for devastated. Then Alejandro Cobo with Nighthaunt, and then Bruno Puente. I think I've done pretty well on the names with Gloomspike Geertz. His list was the Trogherd with the Dank Manifestations with Scragrot, a reinforced unit of Rotguts, and a Rotgut Troggoth unit, only a unit of 3. Then Trug, a Trug Boss, and then 2 units of Rotguts reinforced. So here, instead of the traditional 18 Rotguts, he did go for a cheeky 21 Rotguts, as well as Trug and the Trug and the Dankhold Trog Boss, but didn't have those little units for going and doing battle tactics. So we'll have to see if that's the reason he didn't win. So shout out to everyone in Spain. I hope you're doing really well. Absolutely brilliant community. It's growing. This is a really big event for Spain. 42 players. It's growing bigger and bigger all the time. Really excited for them. Hope to see more events in the future. And now we're moving on to Canada. Our next event takes us over to Canada, specifically for the Northern Waste GT. And you're asking yourself, how remote is this event? Well, here's a Google Maps image you can see. It's in the it's not super north, but it's pretty north in Canada. And if we zoom in, you can see it's all the way up there in BC, British Columbia, right next to Bear Lake. So shout out to the organizers of this event, and also great artwork for their event as well. This was organized by Josh Trenholm. and the rest of the Northern Wastes Alliance. So congratulations to all those guys putting on a pretty massive event. 42 players, that's really brilliant. It was being held at the Black Clover Fine Irish Pub. And as I understand it, they also had a great night out after at the Heartbreakers nightclub. But you'll have to take my word for it, not theirs. Okay, so let's go look at who did well. Right, looking at the 5-0s, we've got 2. We've got Nighthaunt from Jesse Day. Jesse, loads of love, but I'm not going to read it. I can't read another Nighthaunt list out. That's fine. And then Carson Whitlock, also with a 5-0 with his Ogre More Tribes. Carson runs a amazing YouTube channel. You can go check out all of his games. He's a fun guy. It's called Saga of Dice, if you want to go check that out. And he was running... His list is called the Magnificent Bastards. His battle formation was the Prophets of the Gulping Gods. His manifestation law was the Morbid Conjuration, or as he calls it, the Mandatory Conjuration. Then a Slaughtermaster, who's the General, a Reinforced unit of Iron Guts, a Butcher, and then a Gorge of Moorpack, and then 2 units of unreinforced Ogre Gluttons. And then his last regiment was a Frostlord and Stonehorn, a unit of Frost Sabers, and a Noblars. So instead of having that big... couple of bricks of ogres. Instead, he's gone for smaller little utility units, but he still has that absolutely hammer unit of Iron Guts that are just so solid and could do loads of damage. And then he's got the Frost Sabers for battle tactics, Noblars for screens, Frostlord and Stonehorn for not quite as much damage as it used to, but still pretty good for 360 points. So that's really fun. So yeah, he loves ogres and has been constantly playing ogres all around the world. It's really well regarded in the ogre community as being a very hungry boy. So as a big winner boy, he's done really well there. So congratulations to him. In the 4-1 category, we've got a nice little mixture of armies as well. Daughters of Cain being run by the very successful Matthias Crucial of Warp Dice. Excellent. His Daughters of Cain list is pretty cool. He's running the Slaughter Troop with the Morby Cunge as his manifestation law. He's got Marathi, a reinforced unit of Bloodstalkers, and he's got a Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood, and he's got 40 Witch Elves and a unit of Doomfire Warlocks. I really like the Daughters of Cain build with the Witch Elves with the paired blades. I'm going to say that. I can't say the other word. So I think they're really good. It's a lot of output. They are very fragile, but I guess when you've got Marathi and also the unit of Bloodstalkers, you've got enough defense, or you've got some other units that can take a hit, I guess. Badwin Calabo, I'm so sorry, was running Ogre More Tribes as well. So it's a double for Ogres here. He was running Morby Conjuration in the Prophets of the Gulping God, Slaughtermaster in his first regiment when no other units in there, and then a Frostlord on Stonehorn, a unit of Frost Sabers, a unit of Noblars, and a unit of Gluttons, and then a Butcher, a unit of reinforced Iron Guts, and a reinforced unit of Gluttons. So very similar to the last list that we saw, but very similar to the last list that we saw, but those 2 reinforced units instead of splitting the Gluttons out, which is cool to see. Then Dale Johnson, formerly a DOK player, running loads of Gloomspike Gits. And so he was running a Trog Herd with the Dank Manifestations, and they had a Fungoid Cave Shaman, 2 units of Boingrot Bounders, a reinforced unit of Squig Herd, a reinforced unit of Squig Herd, then the Trog Boss, and 18 Rock Guts. So very similar to what we've seen Gavin play. I know Dale pays a lot of attention to what's happening online, so he would have been conscious of that. But those 18 Rock Guts and loads of Squig Herd for doing tactics and also for doing some good combat. Then finally, David, I'm so sorry, Blanchard Wright with his OCR Bone Reapers was running a Kavalos Deathlance with Xantos, a reinforced unit of Death Riders, a unit of Harbingers, and then the Soul Mason as well, and the Regiment Renowned, the Sternese Garrison with those 2 units of 3 Fellbats, and the Graveguard and Manfred. It's a really nice way of getting a ton of little small units into your army, which OCR Bone Reapers really struggle with. We saw it in the other lists coming out of Sweden that they've used the Tetratic Cohort as a way of getting little smaller units in, but bringing in that Regiment Renown. And also Manfred is also a really excellent 2-cast fighting monster, is a pretty good pick, but it's 700 points to make that happen. So you can see why Catacross isn't in here, because he doesn't have enough units to really support, which is what his job is, a support piece. Anyway, I think it's great that they got 42 players playing in BC all the way up in kind of northern Canada. I hope everyone had a great time. Loads of love to that community. Our next event takes place in Norway, the King of the North 2024, organized by the fantastic Eric Lanes. Now, if you're wondering again, how remote is this event for 26 players to battle it out? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a map. It's right there, right at the very tippity top of Norway, you can see. And looking at the event, it was being held in this hut. as if this doesn't make it quite as strange as being held in a hut. That hut is next to, for no reason at all, 5 telephone booths, which I do not understand. And then is right next to the runway of an airport. So things can only get stranger from here. And to add, not insult to injury, but to make it maybe more confusing, if we look at the event picture for this event, it's just anyway, let's look at the list. Looking at the results, our first 5-0, our only 5-0, sorry, is the indomitable and absolutely perfect Givdeld from Team Norway with his Lumineth Realm Lords. Gear was running in the Hurricane Temple with the Morbi Conjuration, a Hurricane Wind Mage, a Hurricane Wind Chargers Reinforced Unit, a Sinari Caligrave, a unit of River Blades, and then Eleanor and Elathor, a Hurricane Spirit of the Wind, and then a Reinforced Unit of Sentinels, and another unit of River Blades. And then finally, the Regiments of Renown, the Saviors of Cinderfall, which is very sensible because he's a very excellent player, and that is just very good. And it's nice to see that double Reinforced Sentinels still playing a part, and the Wind Charger still playing a part. But what is also nice to see is very diverse as a list. He's got lots of options in here versus the kind of raw power that we're seeing from a bunch of the other armies. Looking at the 4-1s, we've got a nice little diverse set of armies. Lassie Kalberg with his OCR Bone Reapers was running the Mortison Council with Catacross and a reinforced unit of a Mortis Guard, then Fort Martian, and then a reinforced unit of Death Riders and 2 units of Death Riders, and then the Mortars and Soul Mason. This is actually the second time, including Michael Rausch, who we saw play at the Nova Open, running Vort Martian. So the second time we've seen Vort Martian. So go and have a look at his War Scroll and get back into it, because maybe there's some little tricks there, which is cool. Then Benjamin Fludder is running at a fantastic Heat Knights of Slanesh list. In the Seeker Cavalcade, he is running Glutos or Skollion with a unit of Seekers and a reinforced unit of Simbramesh Twin Souls. Being in the General's Regiment, that means he's going to potentially be able to reduce down how many attacks are going into both Glutos and the Twin Souls by, I think, up to 3 attacks per model in the enemy unit. So that is a lot. Then he's got a Shard Speaker of Slanesh, a unit of Blissbarb Archers reinforced, a unit of Slickblade Seekers reinforced, and a unit of Slickblade Seekers reinforced. So an absolute ton of cavalry there, which is not what I was really expecting. But what I quite like is he's got that like castle wall of Glutos and the Twin Souls, and then he's got the Seekers to go really fast and go hit the things that he needs, which is very cool. I really like that list. I think it's really fun. And then Eric Sora is running Nighthaunt. Shout out to Eric, but I just can't be bothered to read through it. Let's have a look. Is it different? No. Perfect. And then Matthias Danielson with our second Iron Jaws in the 4-1 category, kind of, with Zogrog's Anvil Smasher in the Weird Fist, and a reinforced unit of Brutes, a Weird Knob Shaman, a reinforced unit of our boys, a unit of 10 our boys, and then a War Chanter, a unit of Gore Grunters, a More Grunter with Hacking Crew, and a unit of Weird Brute Wreckers, which is cool to see. So again, very different. I think the Ard Boys is a really fun anvil, and the Brutes are a really, really good hammer. So that's cool. Anyway, if you get the chance to go and play with those guys, obviously they're just wonderful people. And if you get the chance to get to the very north, if you get a plane to the north of Norway and you want to go hang out with them, it's one of my dreams to go to a King of the North event in the future. Just great people. Go have a great time. Our next event takes us over to New Zealand, which is cool. I think this is the second event we've covered from New Zealand in this GHB, or in this edition, which is really fun to see. With the same winner as well, Bo Patterson. Shout out to Bo. It's being held here at St. Patrick's College in Wellington. Little here, a classic. You get loads of events are run in schools. I think that's just I think they're cheap to rent out at the weekend, basically. Anyway, congratulations to him. We had 18 players play at this event, which is really good. And Bo was running Nighthaunt. This time he mixed it up a little bit. He had Nagash, 20 Blade Geist Revenants, Night Shrouds on Ethereal Steed, and then 2 units of 10 Hex Wraiths. So different to the other lists we've seen, with the inclusion of Nagash, which is cool. And then we only had 1-4-1 at this event, which is Alex Sinclair with his Lumineth Realm Lords, and he was running Archmage Techless, 20 Sentinels, and then Light of Eltharion, 20 Wardens, 10 Dawn Riders, and 10 Wardens. So very similar, Techless and the Sentinels. A little bit of different with the Light of Eltharion as a leader in the of the other regiment, and then the Wardens and Dawn Riders as well. So very similar. Anyway, big shout out to everyone in the New Zealand community. It's really cool to see people playing there. I know they've always had a very consistent community of people playing. I think some of the players are a little bit new. But if they're not, and they're just, it's the same kind of group of people, either way, hope everyone's having a great time. Shout out to everyone in New Zealand. Our last event is a little tiny event in Ipswich in the UK. If you've never been to Ipswich, you've missed nothing. But it does have, and the only reason to go to Ipswich is the fantastic Langdon Games, which you can go to, which is absolutely lovely. Looks fantastic. Shout out to the organisers, or the runners of Langdon Games. Anyway, the event is run by Tim Davey. Tim's a great person. Love him to bits. And it's the Essex Moor Tribes and Langdon Games putting it together. Anyway, in the 5-0 slot, we only had one army, and it was Callum McDougall with his Silverneth army. He was running the Outcast Battalion and the Morby Cunge. His general's regiment was a Lariel and a reinforced unit of Colonel Hunters with great bows. I've run this regiment. Those great bows are insanely good. And then he was running Belthanos, 2 units of Gossamer archers, and Spirit of Durthu in the list as well, which makes a lot of sense. Those Gossamids are really good for doing battle tactics. Belthanos running charge is very effective, and his Spirit of Durthu is also an excellent fighter, which obviously a Lariel can bring back from the dead. Just absolutely lovely. And then finally, Seb Ducker with his Cities of Sigmar was running a 5-drop Ironworld Guild army with the Morbid Conjurations. He was running a Free Guild Marshal and Relic Envoy, a Free Guild, 2 reinforced units of Free Guild Fusiliers, which I think is the way to play this army, an Alchemite Warforger and a unit of Wildercorp Hunters, the Pontifex Sinestra, a reinforced unit of Cavaliers, and 2 units of 5 Cavaliers, and then Callus and Toll, and then Toll's companions, but not in the regiment, just out of the book. And Callus and Toll still absolutely excellent in this army as well. They're very, very damaging to big centerpiece models, of which there are loads. So it's a great list. It's a very cool list. It's exactly the sort of Cities of Sigmar list I would want to run. And that's it for this weekend. There's all of the event results. Oh, just quickly shout out the players in France. There was a event in France, but they did not. Nighthawk won the event, but they didn't submit. They used Tawny Keeper, so you can't track any of the lists. So that's really difficult to do. So we saw some consistent themes. Yes, we did see Nighthaunt do well again in multiple different places. However, if you can just skip away from that conversation for a moment and focus on the other stuff, we've got to be talking about that sleeper army Tzeentch doing so well over multiple different places. LRL still really solid as well. Loads of really good lists and very diverse LRL lists. We saw Stormcast up there. We've seen Ironjaws, seen Daughters of Cain. There were some armies missing, sure. And I know some people, and in the comments below, let me know which one you're sad about seeing. But please don't ever forget not to take one weekend's events results and think it's the entire representation of the meta, because it really isn't. I don't think. But I think Tzeentch doing super well and being at that top of the game is actually pretty interesting, like all told. And maybe when those battle scroll points are coming in and we see Nighthaunt and Rotguts. I mean, Rotguts is also a thing we should talk about as well. 18 Rotguts all over the place in every single list. But there's also a consistent through line. There's a very consistent theme that we're seeing, which is a general's regiment with a really good shooting unit being able to get those pluses to hit and pluses to wound and shoot in your opponent's turn feels very, very effective. Also, one of the things I think stands out is there's quite a few regiments of renown seeing play. Yes, we saw the Black Talons do really well at one event, and we've seen Callus and Toll a couple of times, but we saw Elwyn's Thorns. We saw Manfred's one played as well, which I think is quite interesting. And I do think Regiments of Renown could be a really fun way of creating some very interesting list diversity later on. The reason Callus and Toll are taken is because they're probably just too cheap for just how effective they are. But things like Neve Black Talon, the Black Talons, or Elwyn's Thorns are a little bit more diverse, and they add something to an army, which is, I think, pretty interesting. And I'd like to see more regiments released by Games Workshop in the future as a way of creating some list diversity, because I think the list could get a little bit similar. However, that said, we've also started to see people really start to flex and build loads of different styles of lists as well. Our Cruel Boys lists look kind of the same, but also quite different from each other, especially the ones last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry, which had a lot of monster killers. But now we're seeing a lot of Gut Rippers and Bolt Boys, and people are finally started to build and paint them and get them ready to play. We've seen even though Lumineth are doing really well, all their lists have been fairly diverse. Sinesh have been out there doing well and losing as well. And a couple of players and armies have jumped to the top. Even our Osiarchs list with our catapults is pretty spicy. So loads of very different armies if you can move away from the Nighthawk conversation, which is very prescient and very relevant. Right now, it's a very good conversation to be having. But you would be missing all of the other good, juicy stuff if you are doing that. Anyway, thank you for the Twitch chat who've made this experience really fun. Shout out to Barton, who was able to send me videos of all the players at the event previously. And if you are attending an event or running an event, do send me some videos of the players, do some interviews or something. I'd love to get more of a shot of what your experience is like playing somewhere in the world. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do leave comments, like and subscribe, and join my Patreon if you want to help support me do more of this. And I appreciate you loads. Thanks very much. I'll see you all soon next week.